We're back. It's the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show. We are Quaker Steak and Lube on a very warm and humid Tuesday afternoon here in the Valley of Happiness. Happy to be back. We had some COVID issues at our house last week, so apologize for abandoning ship for the short term, but good to be back.
You would not have liked the conversation anyway.
And lots to get into. I'll tell you, the one thing we were talking off air, we are going to talk college football, Penn State football for the majority of the show. We were saying we're going to kind of shy away from preseason football, but I will say the injuries that are mounting, significant injuries, especially on the offensive line, in these preseason games and practices is remarkable.
Your body's not used to it.
And it's one of those things, and we talk about it every year. There are so many things that go into at any level of football, but especially in the NFL, whether or not it's a successful season or not. And in particular, you know, the difference between your Super Bowl champion and the team that gets bounced in the first round of the playoffs is generally pretty razor thin.
Yeah.
And it's an injury here, it's a play call there, it's a mistake, you know, a turnover, whatever. And it's just there is some luck that goes into it for sure. But it all starts, again, with the preseason. How well does everybody come together? How do you start the season health-wise? And then, you know, more importantly, how do you finish the season health-wise? And those are things that are largely out of your control. Obviously, conditioning and all that factors into it. But a lot of football injury, I mean, it's a contact sport.
Yeah. I got a question for you,
You
Jeffrey.
get injuries no matter how well you take care of yourself and try to prevent it. Yeah.
I don't know if there's ever been studies done on this type of thing, but I mean, how many guys in their career can go full seasons without injury? You know what I mean? How many guys? I mean, there's like a guy like Joe Thomas. I mean, everybody's going to have an injury here and there. It's just going to be one of those things. How bad is it? How long it's going to take and stuff like that. But I wonder if there's ever been any kind of study done of, like, I mean, position-wise, offensive line guys, they seem to miss when they get hurt. It's more of a long time, longer-term injury type of thing. But I wonder. I mean, it's a necessary. It's not necessary. It's a part of the game that coaches and organizations have to deal with, and that's when you lean on your scouting department to say, hey, give me some good backups and this and that, just because I want a guy who can fill in for two positions type of thing. And, you know, and then there's the wily old veterans who guys who never really start. Like, I mean, like AQ Shipley, a good friend of our program and myself, that there's a guy who played 9, 10 years, 11 years in the NFL. He probably has less than a dozen starts in his career, but he sure as hell was he was getting that salary and practicing, but because he could fill in both guards and center position, and they could have the knowledge of one of those guys go down. They have a good guy to fill in there. So, you know, it is their scouting departments getting people in there, but I would be interested to see how many guys have gone a career without missing significant time. Because, and then you heard me wince when you said a lot of injuries already in camp, and that's it was the first time they actually probably went live this past weekend. You know they're not going live in camp. You can't afford to. You can't afford. Yeah, you're exactly right. And then you can't afford to, nor the NFL players agreement. You can't do back-to-back, can't do the heavy hitting, can't have off-season workouts that are full pads. And, you know, now you're going to come in, like I've talked about the last 3 years during this show, like the first 3 weeks of NFL football are just such bad offensive line play because your timing is not down. You haven't got significant time out there playing as a starter with guys next to you at full speed. Yeah. So, it's part of the game, man.
It is. It is nice to see, turning to college football for a bit here, it was nice to see so many new teams atop the rankings. Getting that infusion of new blood.
Exactly. Every year. It's 10 new teams talking. Every year.
Yeah, it's just, you never know. It's oddly this year, a lot of people seem to be high on Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia.
It's Oklahoma or Oklahoma State there. I'm just trying to think. And let's think about they new habit of having to overrank Texas A&M and then have them fail throughout the year. I think I saw that 3 of the teams last year who were ranked in the top 10 didn't get ranked by the end of the year. Texas A&M, UNC, and somebody else. So
Texas A&M is going to be, I think, the one team that a lot of people are going to be keeping their eyes on
because
they're
ranked
6th, I think, in the AP, and certainly seem to be poised. And obviously, with some of the off-season discussion between the head coaches of Texas A&M and Alabama, there will be. It's going to be interesting to see how this whole thing
how about the text I sent
evolves or devolves in the SEC.
The text I sent today, but the guy at LSU who collected 5 or 6 different NIL deals and this and that, and then retires from football, but they cannot get the money back because it's not performance-based. So he just collected money, went to camp, said, I'm not playing, I'm out.
I'm good.
And I'm good.
Thanks, everybody.
I'm going to go play baseball now. I just made $400,000. I'm going to get see how I can do with the baseball world.
Well, and this is, I think, moving forward, this is what it's going to be. The national letter of intent is going to be replaced by a contract. And I get that the letter of intent, in essence, was a contract. But, and I think we've talked about this before, but the lawyers are going to make out, as they always seem to, at the end of the day.
How does that happen?
Off of all of this, because it is, you are going to have lawyers for the universities, lawyers for the kids, and lawyers for all of these businesses coming together before stuff is finalized. And I am telling you, Goon, that you are going to have stipulations in there along the lines. And listen, at some point, somewhere down the road, you're going to have a kid, I can guarantee you, sue a coach over playing time. Because it's going to be at least perceived that the coach, right? Because I mean, well, you have it in pro sports, right? It's like, well, hey, I have a bonus if I get 2,000 yards rushing, and I'm at 1995, and the coach yanked me out of the game, and a lot of teams will go ahead and pay it, understanding the situation. But you've had some pretty contentious situations develop, but listen, there is going to be put on there for these kids, a lot of them at least, moving forward, that listen, yes, this money is waiting here, the scholarship is here, but you must do, and it's going to be spelled out exactly what you must do. The number of practices you must attend, the number of games you must appear in, the number
play football anymore,
and not anymore. It is. I mean, it's been a business for quite a while, but now it is a business. Yes, now it is a business that has all of the moving parts of regular businesses. And again, there's a lot of money involved, and there's a lot of pressure involved for all of the entities. And
remember before
we keep saying, I don't know what it's going to end up looking like.
Remember before all the NIL stuff came out, and I said the good way to pay a player is this, and that is for each year you successfully finish your schooling, your grades are good, you're still in good standing with the school, university, and with the football program, you are given not a stipend, but an annuity that upon graduation, when you fulfill your duty as a Penn State scholar or a NCAA student athlete, you fulfill your, those 4 or 5 years, and you college graduate, then you are given that annuity money, which could be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. I've always thought that was a good way to give players make them want to stay in school, do the right thing, and get their education. Because in the end, when they do get their college graduation and they do fulfill their football duties and their athletic duties and school duties, you get a nice little paycheck when you leave school, instead of what we have here. So, what was I thinking this weekend, Jeff? I really wanted to bring it up. Go ahead. I'll think it.
Along the lines of the NIL stuff.
Yeah.
There are so many moving parts, and the LSU story is, I mean, it is amazing. And again, from a legal standpoint, nothing that can be done about it, but it is absolutely absurd.
Yeah.
That you have somebody who literally never did anything in college.
He took all that money this year and last year, and then he just said, I'm retiring, and they cannot have any. And I think that's what's going to happen. If you're a business owner and you got bit once, like those 7 or 8 sponsorships that he had, I can't imagine being a player going to that restaurant at Cane's Chicken, Raising Cane's Chicken, and saying, "Hey, would you like to sponsor me?" I don't know. I was going to say, "Get the hell out of here! There's nothing in it for me." Nothing. Yep. I mean, he might be getting more advertising because how screwed up the situation is. All right. Yesterday, it got released that Penn State dropped those the signs in Baltimore, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and I believe New Jersey, New York. From Pittsburgh or from Philly to Happy Valley, had the players' pictures. That's the first time I've ever actually seen them use a bevy of pictures from. So in essence, there's 10 guys or 8 guys from Philadelphia, the Philadelphia City Mark, that were their pictures there. The guys from Pittsburgh are in a picture, and it says from Pittsburgh to Happy Valley, or from New Jersey to Happy Valley, from Baltimore, DC. Yep. Do you think they were paid?
Oh, yes.
And how does that happen? I mean,
I don't know what the. Yes, I mean, I do. I think.
I mean, we're at a point now
almost guaranteed. Yeah, and I don't know exactly how.
But if it was a university paid thing, I thought that we were not allowed to pay.
The university is not allowed.
Okay.
But I don't know who. Do we know?
No, I don't know who sponsored the sign or who the sign is advertising.
Right. And so I mean, you can do that third party stuff where the university says, "Hey, we'd like you to go promote our program. Here's money," and the third party
I want
says,
back pay
"Hey,
for that poster I had, Ironhead."
I hear you.
They dressed me up like in a way I did not want to be dressed, and they sold me.
Yep,
they used me. My lame and jeez Louise. That's got good interest built up on that too.
Yeah, big time.
All 51 posters that were given away.
Huge payday coming your way. No
it's
question
like
about it.
I ever tell you about my the Sega Genesis money?
The what money?
The Sega Genesis for the UCLA.
Oh,
they used my likeness for years. Yeah, it was a check for $158, and I'm like, really? Use the left tackle for Penn State in the all-time football team. It was number 53. It was 6'7", 310 pounds. Gee, I wonder who that guy was. I really, really am wondering who that guy was. I don't know. We better pay him off.
Yep.
Yeah. So, so you think that those guys got paid by? Good for them. That's
I guess I don't know, but I don't know how that.
I can't imagine a guy saying yes. That's cool.
Or unless they at least had to have received approval. Right now, I mean, you wouldn't be able to. I don't think legally you'd be able to have them up there without at least prior approval from them.
So I looked at the Philadelphia one, and the kid right in dead center is number 11. And that's Abdul Carter, a true freshman from my high school. And I don't know his face as of yet to see if that's him or there's another 11 on the team from Philadelphia, which I highly doubt. But you have a true freshman in the dead center of a picture in Philadelphia from Philadelphia to State College. Good for them. Good for him. That's good stuff if that's true. But I just thought about it, and I was just like, I don't know if Penn State could pay. Are they still allowed to? Like Chris said, well, I'm sure Penn State still has ownership of their name and likeness a little bit, right? And I was like, I don't know. To promote the program? I don't know. It's just crazy to even think about.
And again, part of this is, I mean, I'm guessing it's there now, but I'm telling you, all of this stuff is going to be spelled out when you sign with a team, right? Coming out of high school.
Right.
Like all of this stuff is going to be laid out. Like the university is going to say, listen, you will receive, I don't know, whatever the legal way to write it is, that, listen, you will receive X amount of money through X fund
If we use your
likeness.
Right.
If we are using your likeness to promote.
I thought that was the
program.
issue with Pennsylvania, is that our state is different than the university. It cannot come from the university, so
it cannot.
There must be a
as
third
of
party.
now. I also expect that a lot of that stuff is going to be changing over the course of the next year, not just in Pennsylvania, but I mean, because again, there's going to be a lot of pressure on these state legislatures to allow the teams to compete at the highest level.
What do we do? 100 shows a year, Jeff?
And
we're about 177 straight shows of talking about NIL, and that's on me. But I cannot get the crap out of my head.
Well, again, it's a lot to unpack, and it's going to continue to change. I mean, the moment you think you have a handle on it, there's going to be other twists. And again, it's going to be an ongoing saga in terms of what teams and programs are best at taking advantage of it and having that translate into successful seasons.
I have a weird thing in my head right now sitting there. And again, I go back to professional athletes, and they don't really have great maturity when it comes to that type of stuff of dealing with people when it comes to money and stuff like that. And you're going to ask a 17 to 21-year-old kid. So all I can think about is these little kids sitting outside of our locker room after a game who have done it for 150 years at Penn State, looking to get an autograph. And if I hear of a player saying, "No, you got to pay me for that," to a little kid, it would infuriate me. But I'm sure it's going to happen, and they may, Penn State the players may have actually asked Penn State to not allow those kids around there because they don't want to. I mean, and that to me is you're now furthering yourself even further away from the young kids and your future Penn State people. I don't know. And again, it's just like maybe it's just I don't think that people would do that, but you never know. I mean, people are weird, and just again. It's going to happen. It's going to come up. It's one of those things. A lot to unpack.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot will still see the benefit and will relate to their own childhoods and all of that. But yeah, I'm sure you're going to have some individuals that will make that choice. And truthfully, honestly, from a business standpoint, it's probably.
Here's what I would do, Jeffrey. Even if I was a part of this world, I would sign for a kid, but I wouldn't sign for an adult. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I hate that. It's like 50, 60-year-old men hammering little kids to get an autograph. It's like, dude. Relax.
No, I'm with you.
Yeah, because we all relate to back when we were kids. I mean, I'm sure you were sitting around that locker room back in the day looking to get an autograph here and there.
I just want to weigh in quickly, and I do want to go back to college football, just talk about what we're looking forward to here is at the start of the season for Penn State and across the board. But just wanted to weigh in quickly because I haven't had a chance to be on the show since Vince Scully's passing. But there are just certain, and there's a bunch of them. We got to discussing, the announcers that most influenced us and or we just admired the most. And the fun thing for me, and it's kind of like players, like we have favorite players, but they could be drastically different in terms of personality, style of play, all of that, right? And Vin Scully just had an amazing knack for finding the right word at the right time and for delivering really understatedly the perfect line for the perfect situation. And he is just one of those truly legendary broadcasters who carved out a remarkable career for himself by, again, doing it his own way. But the main thing that I think he really had, which probably all of the great ones do, is just that passion for the games that he covered. It wasn't just baseball. Obviously, that's what he's best known for, but he covered a wide variety of sports over the course of his career. But he also had a tremendous respect for the players. And he had a way, he wasn't shy from criticizing a player if they deserved being criticized, but it was never a belittling of the player. It's like, man, that's a play. That was a routine play you should make. And the player would be the first to tell you that. But and he would tell you he would give you the straight story of what was happening. But his ability to find the right word at the right time is truly something that very few are able to do the way he was able to do it.
Like I just said it when you were talking. I mean, he did it alone.
Yeah,
I'm sitting next to a guy who covers wrestling alone. Are there many baseball people like that who
not many, no. And he was, he just had such a wonderful wit too that he would weave into his stories and his calls, and so again, we've lost a lot of my childhood idols in terms of the broadcasting industry, and add his name to the long list of those that have headed to heaven.
The stuff about him, what was going on in his career, what he's seen, and stuff like that. I have one that just sticks out in my head and has since I've known it for 10 years. His first game he called in Major League Baseball was against the Phillies, or it was the Mets, excuse me, and Richie Ashburn was playing for the Mets. Booch. Richie Ashburn playing for the Mets. The last game he called, Chase Utley was playing for the Dodgers. Okay? And that's not even the craziest fact that I know about him.
Yeah.
The coolest, craziest fact that I know is that the first year he called games was 1950. He called a game against Connie Mack, who was coaching the Philadelphia A's at the time.
Yeah.
Connie Mack was born in 1862. Think about that. Vin Scully called a game with a man who was born during the Civil War. He was born before the Emancipation Proclamation. Yeah. That to me, I remember hearing that, and Chris Law was the one who said that on the Eisen show a couple years ago, and I was like, wait, what? And then I ended up looking it all up, and I said, holy crap. Connie Mack was coaching in 1950, and Vin Scully was calling Dodgers games, always the Dodgers too. You got to respect that. You know what I mean? He was one, like Harry Callis is my hero, like announcing guy growing up. But he started with the Cardinals a little bit. He had a little bit of history of the Cardinals. Vin was a Dodger through and through.
Yeah. Up
and down. Great voice. I love just when he did pass, hearing some of those stories that they were just like, listen to this for like a 3-minute window. And it was just like, oh, here's a 3-2 pitch. Oh, ball outside. So I was out with Fanning last week, and he's just telling stories, and you're just like, you're watching the game, you're into the game, but you're listening to the story, and you're like, oh God, what's it? What happened to Fanning? How did it go?
Yeah.
How did he meet that person? And it was just so cool how he did it. And again, I was amazed, and I said, holy crap, I never even thought about it, but he always did it. He was always alone in calling baseball games. And you, being a guy who calls wrestling as a single guy, it's like, whoa. I mean, I cannot imagine doing that, but it's a gift, and he was the greatest at it, and I got to give you a lot of that because of how you handle the wrestling thing alone, but it's not easy doing it alone because you got nowhere to go. No, you got nowhere to fall back on. So, but I did love all those Vin Scully stories and all the stuff about him, and but the Connie Mack thing, the 1862 thing, that's the one that just like, whoa, like puts it in perspective, like, holy crap.
Yeah, that's a long career.
Whew. Yeah.
And a very good one. And he certainly lived a great life and doing what he loved. And there's a lot to be said for that.
You said there was there's a lot of different players. All players are different. And I'm sitting there like, Vin Scully and Harry Carey are very similar in how they talked about games and how they acted during and post games. And
well, it's one of those things where every now and then you'll get a coach who personality rubs somebody the wrong way, and it's like, well, they need to be like this. It's like, no, you just need to be in any profession. You need to be yourself, and you need to find. Now, yes, you can't be, constantly these days, especially constantly, berating everybody on your team and be successful. I mean, there's lines that you've got to stay within, but basically you've got to be, if you're a yeller and a screamer, be a yeller and a screamer. If you're a calmer person out, I mean, you can't just, it's not a personality that makes you successful. It's kind of the routine and your ability to get your message across to others as a coach and or as a broadcaster that is going to determine your relative success anyway. But rest in peace, and thanks for a lot of wonderful memories for the great Vin Scully. Let's go to this season. What are you most looking forward to? We'll start with Penn State and then go to college football in general. What are you most looking forward to seeing out of the gate? And can I just tell you, I'll just start real quick here. I know, I do know that Penn State opens up on a Thursday night, but it's one of those things I had just kind of forgotten it, and I'm marking some stuff on our personal calendar, and I'm getting through, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I put Penn State football on Thursday. It needs to be, and then I'm like, oh no, wait, that is where it belongs. But my immediate reaction as I'm looking through everything, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a stupid mistake.
What sport is that?
No college football for Penn State on a Thursday. But I am looking forward to seeing. I will say, if you're going to play a Thursday night, play it that first game of the season.
Us,
anybody.
Yes. We will never have
any Thursday night game. Yeah. You don't want to be playing pro or college. You don't want to be playing a Thursday night game unless I would say it's the first game of the season, because you're backing up the same, right, in terms of the number of practices. It's not affecting that going into that Thursday night game, and then you're getting more than a week to get ready for the second game. Correct. So I'm not a fan of Thursday nights in general, but if you're going to play a Thursday night game, do it in that first week.
And then do it, obviously, never doing it at Penn State, knowing our fan base. It's just impossible to do. You know what I mean? You could do it at a school like
not
Purdue.
Impossible. I would not say impossible.
We would.
I will tell you that if Fox tells you that that's what they're doing it. They can fight it all they want. I can guarantee you. Now, I don't see that happening.
No, our main fans are. But if a 5-hour window, I mean, you got to take Thursday and Friday off.
Yeah, but if you don't think down the road that the networks with the money that's being doled out here to the Big Ten, if the networks, for whatever reason, and again, I'm not expecting this to happen, but I'm telling you, Penn State, yes.
Deep in my heart, I would sit there and say Penn State will never have a well, I can see a Friday night game. I would
never say never.
Well, I guess. There's a lot of stuff that's gone on in the last 20 years that we didn't really.
With the money it's, I'm telling you, they'll.
I mean, money. We traded this game for Joe Buck, for God's sakes. What a great story that is.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it being a Thursday night game on the road. I would never want a home game, personally.
I'm with you.
I don't think our true fan base would be here for that, because they couldn't, you're asking a lot of people to take 2 work days off.
There were people that didn't think Penn State would do Saturday night games for the same reason.
Oh, of course, back in the day. I got you. Yeah, I am looking forward to it because it will be the national audience. It is our way of coming out of the gates. We can do very well in a national stage, and as you saw, we were not ranked for the first time since 2016 in the top 25 this week, and I'm okay with that. I think this is our way of saying, hey, this is a different team, and I think that James does a very, very, very good job of getting his teams prepared to play the opening game, i.e. that Wisconsin game last year.
Yeah. And the thing I'm most looking forward to about that particular game is seeing, and listen, I get that this is not going to be the ultimate test for Penn State's running game, but I do want to see both from just the play calling standpoint and then just the execution up front and with the running back rotation, whatever that ends up being. I am really anxious / excited to see what Penn State is able to do with its ground game in particular. That's the thing that's going to be most fascinating to me in that first game.
You growing horns yet?
Not yet.
I'm there. I'm on it, dude.
I'm ready to.
I'm going to tell you my theory on this season, and that is we are 132% based off of Sean Clifford. the greatest fan of a passing game is the run game. And if Sean can come out the way he did the first few games before his injury last year, where he really, really, really controlled games, dominated games, played really, really well before the injury, and I think that takes a ton of pressure off of our offensive line and our run game if we have a pretty damn devastating passing game.
Yeah.
And I think that Sean Clifford, being a 22nd year senior, is going to be that type of guy who can – I think that he's going to really show people. I mean, he's been here a long time, and he's going to come out the way he did the first 4. And if he could stay healthy throughout the year, I'm very bullish on this team. Yeah,
I think there are a lot of reasons to be, and again, I'm ready to go all in, but I need to see what this team has, and as always, I mean, there needs to be some luck. They need to avoid injuries on the offensive line, and to Clifford and to Mustafa and to Jair Brown. I mean, but if they keep the mainstays healthy, and I don't mean that they can't miss a game here or there. And I will say a couple of things. Clifford is very key to this season, but I will say I don't think Penn State is in as dire a straits depth-wise at quarterback as they were last year. I mean, I do feel better about 2 and 3 going into this season. So that, again, if it's a game or 2, depending on where you're at on the schedule, if it's not Ohio State, if it's not Michigan, I think the Penn State could get by, beat an Iowa if they're up double digits with either of the next 2 guys in there at quarterback.
Have they decided who the backup?
If they can get this running game going.
Who decided the backup? Is it Millar or Velavu? Do they have it announced?
I don't think so now.
But here, I have a nice scenario for you right now.
Yeah.
What infuriated me last year was our lack of preparation for our backup quarterback. Now, does Sean Clifford take it as disrespect?
Or at least the apparent lack of.
If the 5th series of the Purdue game, we get a backup quarterback in there for a series or 2. You know what I mean?
I wouldn't think so. I think his leadership and his comfort level is at a point.
Get this guy some meaningful.
But that's not going to happen. That is not James Franklin's.
I know.
Emma. I mean, that's just not.
But after what happened, would you not try that? You know what I mean? Like change your way a little bit and get him some time.
I just don't think that's the way they look at it. It's that you have the depth chart for a reason, and you need your starter out there until everything. Now, if it's 52-0,
well, that's going to happen. But I'm saying meaningful downs.
Yeah, I just don't. I could be wrong. I don't see it. I think that.
But if a guy can handle that, a lot of guys couldn't handle it mentally. I'm getting replaced.
I don't think
Sean would have that. I don't think Sean would have that. If he's told before, like, hey, we just need to get him some, and then you know what?
But I thought they'd be doing that. I mean, I've thought that would be the right course several times in Franklin's tenure, and it's so I'm not.
And it's not just Franklin.
I just don't think it's happening.
O'Brien had McGloin out there at all times. It was like, get him the hell out of there. But he was treating it like the NFL. And your starting quarterback for a reason. He's going to stay in there until the game's over. You rarely see a backup coming into an NFL game, even on blowouts.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can't really say that's a Franklin thing. That's more of a generational thing nowadays. But, I mean, you were in the bathroom, Chris, but I said, wouldn't it be I would not be upset if, like, the 5th series of the game, and again, by the way, when I say 5th series, say that's the 5th series, but there's a big turnover, and they get the ball on the 11-yard line.
Yeah.
And let's not put the new quarterback. Just circumstances say, okay, we're going to get the backup a series or 2 in each half of meaningful downs. Meaningful downs because of what we went through last year as a team. But
I think it's perfectly reasonable, and I think there's close to 0% chance of that happening. I mean, it's just not. Yes. I mean, it's just not. And
I'm just a goon. I get it.
Well, no, and but I've argued that point for, I think, throughout Franklin's tenure, that I think that's something that would be helpful to developing the continuity of the program when you do lose a Sean Clifford, but it just has not. It's just not what he does. It's just not the way they.
I know that
operate.
when I came here, I was playing offensive line wise. They like to get a second-team guy. They would rotate a guy in, like a Jeff or Marco or myself or Andre, get a series here or there. Not all together.
Yep.
But they would put Jeff at a guard or Marco at a tackle or me at a tackle or me at a guard or Dre, just to try and get, get out there, get some first team rep type of things in a game. And you missed it last week, but we were talking about the NFL, and then it's just so funny because Jeff Harding's being Jeff Harding's. We were freshmen out at Notre Dame, and he came off the sideline, looked at me and Marco and said, "That guy Brian Young, that guy, he's got legs coming out of his shoulder pads." I mean, he said he lined up, put his hand down, and Brian Young walked over, stood over top of him, and put his arm down, and he goes, "I thought it was a thigh coming out of his shoulder. That's how big his arms were." And it's just funny hearing Harding's, who was such a great player, saying, "Oh my God, look at this guy's arms." So
yeah,
I mean, we can figure this whole world out right now. I would like to get some quarterbacks, some backup quarterback plays, even some backup offensive line play. But
I will say they've got to get that offensive line. They have to figure out what they have. I'm okay with leaving. If they have a combination that they feel comfortable and confident with, because that to me, aside from the health that we've talked about, because the leadership is here on this team, and I guess we don't know it for sure yet as far as the overall play of the receivers and tight ends and all that. But I feel pretty confident with the skill positions, and again the leadership, and we'll have to see it all play out on defense. But I'm pretty confident that this will be a good defense at the very least. And
they're going to be young, and they're going to be.
It's going to come down to that offensive line being able to move some people off of the ball. And again, I think that could happen? Sure. But I need to see it before I'm going to buy in on it at this point, because I've thought it too many times where I thought it would take that next step forward, and it just hasn't happened.
I've been saying it for the length of our program, and that has been that you've never seen a good football team with a bad offensive line. Never.
Yeah.
The reason I'm looking back on it, in my head, I'm sitting there saying I got the AQ Shipley, Ornberger, Dennis Landau, Mikey Lucien, offensive line back there in 08, 09. They were a very good offensive line. And then the next really good one we had ended up being the 2012. Like, can you imagine having a crappy offensive line and with all those sanctions that went on and stuff like that? Again, you have to have a good offensive line to have a successful program. And we have not had one since 2012. No doubt in my mind. And it's crazy that we have guys in the NFL, but we still have really, really, really not done well on the offensive line.
Yep.
And we haven't put it together. I mean, how many offensive line coaches have we had since 2012? I mean, Bill had 2, and this is our 3rd or 4th one here with James. Yeah, you're talking about 5 or 6 offensive line coaches in 10 years, man. Yeah, like, that is just freaking crazy. And it's the same effing results all the time. It's like we're just like not coming off the ball, and we just seem like we're stagnant. We're going to read and react, and if I hear somebody say this, obviously you could tell it means something to me. I get all I'm starting to sweat, for God's sakes. So we're sitting here, we teams don't road grade anymore. I'm like, bullshit. You watch that offensive line from Michigan last year.
Yeah.
Just absolutely mauled people. You watch Alabama in the last 10 years. They come off the ball. They're not sitting there waiting, reading, and reacting. They're coming off the freaking ball, coming off hard. And if somebody gets in their way, if you're not confident, make a mistake at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Just do something. Don't just stand there and whiff. And it just seems like our guys are there's just no confidence, and they don't understand what's going on. There's no confidence in what they're doing. And that leads over to our run game just absolutely stinking. And then the passing game, there's too much pressure put on the passing game. And then, we have to get away from the run game. So defenses are just loading up and just blitzing, and it's just a recipe. It's just like the same crap over and over and over again. And I just wait for the day where, and I hope it's coming. I hope it's here. I hope that we're going to have a feasible, workable offensive line, for a couple years in a row, not just like one-hit wonders every 6 years.
Yeah. No, I'm with you, and it remains the biggest concern for sure. for this team and this program.
And I'll say it. I say it every show. It is by far the hardest position to recruit because it's easy for these guys and their size and their strength that they have to just throw little guys around, like, when they're in high school. And it's just tough to sit there and say, how are they going to react against guys that are twice as strong as them and as big as them? How are they going to react? You
and
can't
there's such a mental component to it at the high school level too, but I mean at the college level when you're talking about the defensive schemes and all of the different looks and stunts and all of the different places that defenses can send guys from now, so that having the physical tools is certainly part of it. Working together is a big part of it, but knowing what your assignment is, depending on what is happening on the other side of the ball, is also a big part of it. And listen, getting the comfort level, and I think, Goon, sometimes, people get down on running backs and or on offensive lines, and sometimes it's not necessarily either one. They're just not. The hole isn't opening up when the back needs it to open up. And sometimes it's just a matter of timing. And that's why, again, I'm really curious to see the rotation here that Penn State gets established with its running backs. And, again, it's split seconds here or there that can pop a play or absolutely blow it up. That offensive line is just, it's you have to have everybody in sync, knowing what they're doing and getting to where they need to be to make the play. But then you also have to have the running back, again, knowing, patience. Okay, this is the read I need to make. And man, when the opportunity is there, flying through the hole that hopefully is there.
Problem is
and making it happen.
A running back who's used to going in the line of scrimmage just getting drilled. It's just going to try and go as fast in the line of scrimmage as he possibly can because he doesn't want to get drilled.
Yeah.
Instead of giving his offensive line some time and having some patience, and it's a double-edged sword. It's like, you got to give them patience, but then if they're not getting the job done, then you look bad, and then it can snowball on you pretty quick as a running back. So. I mean, you play with some great players who we have in the past, and we're going to have some hell of good players here. But it's depending on how they read their offensive line, and especially the tight end.
Yeah,
our tight end blocking was not exactly lighting the world on fire last year. Chris constantly talks about the sophomore slump that we had in the tight end room, and I very much agree with that. So we've got guys coming into their third year. It's time for them to start kicking ass, and that's where I'm at a little bit, Ironhead, and that's where I get a little frustrated with our program right now. And that is that 2 years ago, we had the youngest team in the country. So should we not have one of the oldest teams in the country right now? And we don't. And because of attrition, guys transferring, getting kicked off the team, going to the NFL. We've had a dozen guys go to the NFL, so it's not just bad stuff. But we're still not one of those older teams. And my theory of the offensive line, if you're asking freshmen to come in and play on the offensive line, it's a sign that, he might not be that good and you got a pretty shitty program if you're expecting that to happen. You cannot expect that to happen. You have to build these guys and create these guys. And, like I said, if you are the young team, okay, you send your little puppies out there, they get their asses kicked for a year or so, this and that. But, that leads to something. That leads to, okay, you know what? You learn on the run. You get beat up a couple times. You learn how to fight.
Yeah.
So you think that after 2 years of getting your ass kicked, you would start to be the ass kicker. And I'm patiently awaiting that for many years.
As are hundreds of thousands of Penn State fans, and we'll see. I do think this group, if it stays healthy, has a chance to be solid. I don't know about the road graders that we're talking about, but I think and I don't know. Again, I don't know that they necessarily need. I mean, it would be wonderful to have, and I think you need to continue to work toward that to have a dominant offensive line. But I really don't think that's what Penn State need, and I don't think it's what they've needed all along. They need. I still think you need better, and I know they did what they did in 2016 with that line, but that was not a great offensive line by any stretch. And if you can get a unit that is just a little better than that, just again, a little better than average in the Big Ten, which is good. I mean, I'm not average in the Big Ten. You've got some big time athletes out there doing some big time things,
Great.
but you need to be, for this program to be what it wants to be, and for this team to get where it wants to be, you've got to be a little above average. And I think if they're just a little above average and you avoid key injuries, I really do think everything else is in place for this team. And with the way that schedule plays out, similar to last year, I think, because you have an opportunity for a couple of early relative statement games, to make some noise with road wins. And then, it kind of builds into the conference schedule. And then you have a chance, obviously, to play yourself into a confident and hopefully pretty darn good team by the time you get to the juggernauts on your schedule. So we'll see. I do like the way the schedule plays out. I like the leadership on this team. I like the potential for that offensive line to finally take a step forward. And again, the thing I'm most going to be watching for in that Purdue game is how does that running game look over the course of 4 quarters. Who are we seeing? What are they doing in terms of the running backs? And how is that offensive line establishing the line of scrimmage?
And it's Purdue. It's not going into Wisconsin now. It is Purdue. We're Penn State. So what do? You go out there with the attitude saying, we're bigger, better, and bigger and stronger than you. We need to impose our will upon you.
Yep.
This is what should happen. It better happen. Otherwise, we're going to have you in a long season. And I think that James, again, I go back to what I said. I think that James does a very, very good job of preparing his team for openers. He really does.
Yeah. Excited for that opening weekend. Obviously, a lot of people are talking about the Notre Dame and Ohio State game, and I get that it's 2 big names. And listen, it's college football. It's opening week.
Sure.
Crazy things can happen. But there is a reason that Ohio State is a 2-touchdown favorite.
You'll love this story. So my brother-in-law is an Ohio State fan, and his best friend is a Notre Dame fan. They were arguing. He goes, I'm not doing that straight up. You got to give me points. So they made a bet, and he goes, I'll take 3.5 points. And I'm sitting there going, dude, it's 14.5. It's 14.5. Take the freaking bet. Take that bet. And I was like, dude, you got to do a little bit of homework before you start yapping. But I mean, I didn't know this, Ironhead. Yeah. There are 7 or 8 games the Saturday before Purdue Penn State. There's a couple games like that. Yeah, okay. There's some HBCU games. I know Florida State's playing. I believe UNC's playing. Nebraska plays, I think.
Okay.
And then there's a game on Sunday and then Monday. It's like that opening week. But we're the only game on Thursday, I believe, right?
I think that is true, yeah.
Because that is national exposure. That is great for our freaking football program. It's exactly what they need right now.
If they go out and deliver.
Yes. I really, really I like this. It's Purdue. Again, I mean, I'm not selling Purdue short. I know they're an up-and-coming team, but make them continue to be an up-and-coming team because we're still Penn State. You still got to act like Penn State and make it freaking happen. I mean, 16 days, Ironhead. Can you tell I'm a little fired up?
No, and I think it's, again, I think it's a good opportunity for this team to, as you said, go out and just make, again, it's not going to be a statement that, hey, Penn State's national title contenders, but make a statement that, hey, we're looking to build off what we did in the early part of last season. I think that's got to be the mindset of this team. And I do think the fact that they're not ranked. I mean, Franklin, I think is
we don't deserve
right up there with
ranked.
but I think he's right up there with the best coaches at motivating his team, and they'll have a chip on their shoulder, and I don't think that's a bad thing.
Nope.
When you have, again, the type of leadership that's on this team, combined with, at least a feeling that you're being overlooked or slighted or whatever, I think that's fine. Ride that as far as it'll take you. And the other game that I am looking forward to that opening weekend, and it's the other game that's going to get the most talk is that Oregon-Georgia game. I will say I kind of wish it was in Oregon just because much like the Ohio State-Notre Dame, if that game was in South Bend, I think it becomes – I mean, I'm still favoring Ohio State and Georgia at Oregon. I'd still be favoring Georgia. But the Georgia-Oregon game in particular, if that game was at Oregon and in Eugene, I think that becomes a much more interesting watch. And again, it's not that I don't give Oregon any chance. And same thing with Notre Dame. Ohio State turns the ball over a couple of times. All of a sudden, that game could go any direction. So, but I will say I think there's a significant talent gap between Ohio State and Notre Dame right now. And I think there's
they're going to use the whole
advantage for Georgia being at
thing.
home.
New coach going out there. They got the coach that they wanted type of stuff. I mean, that could be a hell of a game. And I think that the Notre Dame fans are totally buying in with the new coach and the new regime. They're going to play hard for this guy. But you literally are going to go against one of the most talented teams in this country in Ohio State.
Yeah, I'm not sure that this team this year isn't the and I know, I mean, Alabama's Alabama, and I get it. But I'm telling you, top to bottom, I'm hard-pressed to think that even Alabama has a better roster right now than what Ohio State is putting out there. And I just think I think Notre Dame will play hard. I think, I think it could be a good game for a while. I just think over the course of 4 quarters, there's just too much talent across the board there for Ohio State to not pull away. I think Ohio State covers the, I don't know, is it 14 or 14 and a half. I think they'll cover even that. I think Ohio State is that far along right now.
Maybe I'll bet you a chicken tender on that, Ironhead.
We could do that. And I think Georgia beats Oregon, but I think that has a chance to be a very entertaining game as well on opening weekend. But opening weekend cannot get here soon enough. I am with you.
Well, Oregon's got new staff, right? Booch?
They do have new staff.
Yeah, Cristobal went to Miami.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see how Manny Diaz plays for us, by the way.
Yeah.
You watch any of those videos of practice and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Homeboy's into it, man.
No, I'm excited to see.
Exactly what I think he'd be as a coach.
Yeah.
It's exactly what I saw. Wearing spikes out there, running around with a chicken without his head on, with his head cut off, just going crazy, but showing the drills and stuff like that. High energy. I was impressed by it.
And I think it's one of those moves that has I think the players have bought in completely big time. And yeah, I just think it's one of those. It's just a good situation right now for Penn State, and it's why I think that defense is going to be very good. Again, so long as it stays healthy. The secondary obviously is going to be very good, but I think they'll get a lot out of the linebackers and the front seven as a whole. And again, the way that schedule develops, I mean, Auburn obviously has some good linemen on the other side, but not like what you're going to face with Ohio State and even Michigan. I know they lost a lot of key guys last year, but I think those two teams have the best lines that Penn State will face this season. So you have some time to get your groups, worked out and improved upon before you face the what is in my mind the real meat of the schedule. Not to say that this team right now can overlook anything.
I complain about the Big Ten Network a whole ton, right?
Yeah.
I complain about how the NHL still hangs on the NHL. Hangs on the Rangers winning a Stanley Cup in 1994.
Of course.
I mean, did Michigan win like 26 national titles last year? I mean, Jesus, that's all they talk about on the Big Ten network is, Michigan, winning the Big Ten last year and going to the playoffs, and that win over Ohio State. And it was like, that's all they freaking talk about.
Yeah.
And they're sitting there. They already had this team as a team of destiny and stuff like that. And it's just like, oh my God. We could sit there and say how much we despise Michigan because of the love that the Big Ten Network gives them. But I mean, it's like, dude, do you not just, sit back with an honest opinion and you have to look at it and go, oh my God, it's a little too much love going on right now for that school as usual.
Yeah.
That's what they do. But use that. Screw them all.
That is a wrap for us today. We will be back Thursday with yet another edition of the big show here. And until then, we hope that you are both good and safe.